Hi everyone, so Valorant Masters 1, our first LAN of 2022, is just around the corner. It starts in about 6 hours, I believe. It'll be 3 am where I am, in New Zealand, when it starts. So I probably won't be able to catch the first game, but there's 3 games happening today, so hopefully I can get some more. So just before the tournament started, I wanted to bang out a couple videos, or at least one. I said planning on doing another one of my finalized top 20 players because my list has changed a lot with a lot of consideration. But before that, I wanted to make basically a ranking, a tier list of all of the teams at Iceland. So I'm going to base this on basically not what I think they do or how strong they are going into the tournament, basically on my expectations for them mixed with how well I think they can actually do. So it's a mix of everything. I'm not going how they are their power rankings right now, how far they reach at their peak or whatever. I just think it's a mix of everything, and basically just comparing the teams against each other and how strong the competition is right now. Because although I think the level of pro Valorant has actually gone up across all teams, if you just consider the whole scene, I think the teams have gone up, but the teams that have been sent to this event, to Masters 1, I think is a little weak. There's going to be no FPX, sadly. We have no mech, Fnatic without a full roster. Maybe at the end of the video I'll do my true power rankings if kind of all of the teams were there. But for now, I'm just going to look and focus on who is actually attending it. So we'll start off with Fnatic. So Fnatic, they're in a little bit of an unfortunate situation right now. They can't. BraveF won't be able to play with them at all. Excuse me, due to the fact that he's a Russian citizen, so he can't travel. And Durka, he actually tested positive for COVID. I think it was like a couple days before he was supposed to travel, which means that he actually isn't in Iceland with the rest of Fnatic right now. Sorry. And yeah, so he's not on the rest of Iceland right now. So there's a chance that he won't start. But Boaster said in the interview, an interview that he had at the press conference, that they're trying to get Durka to play as soon as possible, hopefully on day one, because I don't believe Fnatic actually play on day one. And I believe Fnatic, because there's 3 games happening on day one, and I believe Fnatic play on day 2, so there's actually a decent chance that Durka will be able to play the whole tournament with them. But I don't think this Durka thing will impact them too much, so I'm just going to assume that they will be playing with Durka throughout the whole tournament. So yeah, no BraveF. I think that does impact them quite significantly. I think BraveF was someone who had very high impact kills, who wasn't necessarily a pop-off player, who was very flexible, always filled in any role. So I forgot who's subbing in for them, but I think I do trust Boaster and Mini, Fnatic's coach, that they've picked up the right players to fit that role. And yeah, so they still have Durka, they still have Boaster, who I believe are the 2 most important players. If Fnatic didn't have either of these players, they'd all the way down to the bottom, like not the bottom, but like very low down my list, because these are 2 integral players. But obviously Mystic still there, really strong player, same as Magnum. I think Magnum's good, but with Boast and Durka, I still have high expectations. The one game, in my opinion, the best game so far of Valorant, of Pro Valorant in 2022, is the Fnatic versus Mech series, which was crazy good. It was like 3 hours long from a best of 3. It was insane, and Fnatic ended up taking that game, which is why they're here in Iceland. And I really want to put them higher, but without BraveF, even though with BraveF they're still a good team, it's just that they're not the same team, which is my problem. They're not the same fluid team, and you especially considering this is a boasted team, where they're going to have an environment and a cohesive environment where all the players are involved in set plays, where players kind of have an instinct of what Bosa is going to call and what he wants to do in a round. And bringing in a sub doesn't necessarily ruin that, but it's hard for the sub to catch on. So I'm going to put Fnatic in A tier. I think they have a chance to still win the tournament. Like, without Brave F, they still have chances, but I think that they just went down from a title contender to someone who has to actually work their way and fight for this top prize and to show their worth with a sub. So next team is NiP, coming from Brazil. They managed to 3-0 the LATAM team in the last chance qualifier, so they get that extra spot for Brazil. And as well as NiP can play sometimes, hate to say it, I don't think they're going to do much in Iceland. And they have strong players, like Zand, he's an incredible player. They have John as well. They have really strong players, I will admit that, and they have a lot of firepower on their team. Only problem is that the reason why they got so far is because, well, in Brazil, Brazil's not a very strong region, except for one team, of course. We'll get to that later. But in general, Brazil's not a very strong region right now. So with pure firepower alone, NiP was able to just boom, just head forward and make their way straight to the playoffs, to the finals, and get that Iceland spot. But this isn't going to work against the stronger teams. These 12 teams are the 12 strongest teams across the whole world, across all of their regions. And there's a reason for that. And it's because not only are they strong in terms of firepower, but they're extremely tactical teams. That's what separates the good from the best, is the tactics, the resilience, all this stuff. And while NiP can beat these weaker Brazilian teams because they have better firepower and they just gunned of them, it's not going to work. And yeah, it's straight up, it's just not going to work versus these better teams, even versus the teams who I don't really call out specific teams for my tier list, but some of the teams that you might not expect to even get it past group stage, they can just adapt, because NiP is a very straightforward team. They don't even have that great of comps. Like on Icebox, is still running Jet Reyna, which is not ideal at all. And if they shut down John's Reyna, then you have no options because you have a lack of utility and they figured you out. So there's nothing you can do. So I'm going to have to put NiP in C tier. I do think they can take maybe a map of a team if they don't expect it, if they don't prep enough for NiP, if they get lost. If you panic against NiP, they will just gundiff you. That is obvious. But if you can figure them out and get into a rhythm, and IGL can get into this flow state of being like, guys, okay, you gotta watch out for this. They're playing heavy towards here, and there's just no way NiP can get back into it. So maybe they take a surprise map, but I don't see them getting into playoffs. Next team is DRX. DRX. I'm a huge Korea fan, so I'm really hoping DRX do well this year, because in 2021 it was disappointing, to say the least. Not only did they not make it to Iceland in 2021, and they didn't make it to Iceland, but in Champions they also got knocked out in groups. It was close, it was a good performance, but they still got knocked out, so oh well. And at Berlin, they had a really good group stage. I believe they bet, who was it, Gambit and Ascend? Oh, I can't remember who they bet, but they bet two really good teams, and I believe, I think they actually 2-0'd Gambit, maybe. Actually no. Okay, I'm not sure who they 2-0'd, but it was either Ascend or Gambit in the group stage. They 2-0'd to make it out, but they got knocked out in corners, which was kind of disappointing. And this year, they've done a little swapping. So RB has changed from the Sova role, and he's changed to Duelist, and Buzz has moved from the Jet role to the Sentinel role. And I believe this DRX squad is much, much better than they are last year. It might not be obvious at first sight, but I think these role changes are extremely pivotal, or will be extremely pivotal, especially, well, at least in the long run. It might not show at this Iceland event, but I think in the long run, this is going to benefit this team so much, because they've had a huge increase of firepower by moving Buzz to this Sentinel role. him playing Chamber, he's able to pop off so much. He gets so much value on Sentinel, even when he's playing like Killjoy. And the RB can pop off as well. They're this huge threat team, and they have so much firepower. Yeah, I think it's hard to judge this team because exactly last year, so many analysts and so many people were so high on Vision Strikers because it's like, oh my gosh, they're dominating Korea. No one can stand a chance against them. And then they come to the international events and they choke because, well, they don't have enough practice. And now they've had enough practice and they've shown us that, well, this is legit. This new DRX, not new, but this DRX squad is actually really legit. And I have high hopes for this team. So I'm going to chuck them in A tier because I do expect them to make it out of their group. And I do expect them to make it to playoffs. And honestly, against some of the teams that are below them, so B and C tier, or even maybe some of the teams around them in A tier, I do expect them to beat them easily, or at least be extremely competitive and win these games. Maybe even against the top teams, I expect them to be competitive against these S tier teams. So, but there's always a chance. We saw that last year, even though there were high expectations, everyone thought Jerry or Vision Strikers were going to do well. They didn't. So, fingers crossed for this DRX squad. I really want the best for them as a career fan, but we're going to have to see. Next team is Xerxia. So Xerxia is the second seed from Iceland. They're going to have to play through, from APAC. They're going to have to play through groups. And, there's not much to say about this team. This is basically the old X10 roster that ended up making it out of groups at Champions, beating Envy in one of my favorite series of all time. That was crazy. But they lost Petapan, which is a big blow because Petapan was huge in terms of firepower for this team, of just being able to go dumb crazy whenever. But they did get a strong, when they lost Petapan, but in return, they got Scary. And Scary is their smokes player, and he has just been absolutely carrying this team. And it's similar for Paper X as well with a certain player, but Xerxia has just been absolutely, not, I don't want to say like purely carried, but he is like the glue piece for this team, Scary. And it's really scary what he can do on the smokes roll. He puts up such insane numbers, and even you could say, oh well, X10 or Xerxia bet Envy last year in the groups and made it to the quarters. So surely they can do something like that again this year. I'm sorry, but no. I think the Envy squad last year that they versed was extremely boomed. It was extremely close series, but there was not the same Envy squad that we know. And I think they don't have Petapan. And I think that's a huge loss for them. Because Petapan is someone who, when you put him on like a jet roll, who you just can't, he just goes crazy whenever he wants. He just puts up gets like a insane entry, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, our defense is like, we're playing 4v5 now because of some random kill that he got. And sure, Scary is a really insane player who puts up insane numbers. Like, you just like watch some of his games, he is like so good, but he can't have the same impact that Petapan has on, because he's playing the smokes role. And when you're playing against better straight up competition that is better than you and more experience from regions like NA and EMEA, where they're going to have more experience, they're going to be more prepared, that's not going to work just getting these like entries, these random entries, because you can't when you're playing smokes characters. When in APAC, when you're versus weaker teams or teams that are on the same level as you, it's like kind of close. You can kind of fight your way, you can do your thing and outgun them, but you can't do that versus better teams and versus more experienced teams. So I'm going to put them B tier because they do have strong players, and I can see them making a run like the extended, the old org at Champions, but we're going to have to see. Optic, I don't know really what to think of Optic. So Optic has had a amazing playoffs run in NA. They ended up they ended up winning in the upper bracket, but they lost to the Guard in a 5-game banger in the grand final. And yeah, so I want to really talk about specifically the roster moves they made. So, or not roster moves, but the position changes they made. So they swapped off Victor from the flex role into the main duelist role. So he's been playing a lot of basically anything that's not Jet. So Raze, Neon. It's mostly just Raze and Neon, I guess. And I mean, he can flex. I think he flexes on some maps, like the KO sometimes. And Ye, he's moved from solely playing Jet to playing Jet on some maps. Like I believe he plays it on. What's the Jet map that he plays on? Because I was gonna say Haven, but he plays Chamber on Haven. Why can't I think of it? Like Ascent. He plays like Jet on a couple of maps, I believe. Ascent is one. Can't remember the other, but he plays Chamber on most maps, like Haven, and that opens up Victor to play the duelist role. And while he's been leading towards Raze on most maps, specifically more Raze maps like Fracture and Split, where Raze is picked a lot, Victor's also been picking up the Neon, which I really like. And the way the dynamic has changed, and the dynamic of this team has really changed, because it used to be that Ye was just a hard carry. Everyone around Ye would just try and set him up to frag out, and he could do so. Playing this kind of more passive AWP style, and him moving to this chamber role is just like the perfect role from him, because he can kind of do the same things that he was doing on Jet, except the things that Chamber can do, like hold more passive angles and uses Rendezvous more instantly than a Jet TP, and use it multiple times in a round. It really favors how he wants to play, because he's not this like crazy entry Jet where he's like throw smokes here, dash in, updraw, pop knives, poo poo poo. He's not like that. He's just kind of, he just kind of gets his entries from holding angles and like taking map control slowly and like slowly choking you down instead of pushing really aggressively. And moving to the chamber, he's really been able to do that, because he's let Victor move on to the duelist role, where ignore that. But Victor's the one who's actually hard entering. Victor's one going boom bam pow into the faces on double satching on Raze or sliding in on Neon, and then Ye's the one following up, and that's actually been allowing Ye to take more map control easily, since he's not the one who has to go in, and which means that which means overall Envy's been able to have more impact as a team. This might be controversial to say, but I prefer this current orientation and rotation of agents that Envy are playing with, Ye on Chamber and Victor on main duelist, than they were actually playing at Berlin. I think in the long term, just like the DRX, that this will benefit them, because they're able to get a lot more value. Also, we should probably talk about some other members, specifically Marved. I think Marved, even though when you look at Berlin, he was putting up crazy numbers. I thought Marv was one of the most underrated players around that Berlin era where Envy reached the finals. And maybe he's not reached that level still, but he's still doing a similar thing. And that's honestly really good to see, because it's not necessary, but it's very vital to this team. Crashies and FNS, I don't think they've reached, specifically Crashies hasn't reached the same level that he had at Berlin. I thought he was really good at Berlin, and he hasn't really reached that level since. So maybe at this tournament he could really pop off, but I'm going to actually put Optic in S tier. They're a really complete team right now. It feels like they've finally figured out what they want to do in terms of maps instead of strats, and this transition has just been amazing for them. Like, you could not ask for a better meta, especially if this meta goes on long term. I think this could be really beneficial to Optic, not just at this event. So next team is Zeta Division. I'll be honest, I don't really want to talk about Zeta Division much. I tend to ramble on a lot. This video is probably already half an hour long, and we still have half the teams to go. So I'm just going to keep this short and simple. Zeta Division are probably the worst team of this tournament. Japan as a region has not improved much. I mean, it doesn't feel like it at all. Like Brazil, it feels like there's stronger teams. Japan doesn't feel like that at all. Zeta Division as a team has only gotten slightly better. There are not many players on this team that I feel like even highlighting. So yeah, I think they're just definitely the worst team on this list. So I put them C tier as well. Because with NIP, they have firepower. I can see them winning maps and games potentially. Zeta Division, I don't see that. I don't see them reflecting. So yeah, I'm going to have to chuck them in C. Next team is Crew. So Crew obviously made a huge deep run at Champions last year, making it to quarterfinals and even going to overtime on map 3 versus Gambit. It was crazy. I love it. Oh my gosh, Champion was such a good event in 2021. And Crew made huge upsets versus, Sentinels versus, I believe they beat Fnatic as well, and even nearly beating Gambit. That was such a good series and such a good run from them. But sadly, this is not the same team anymore. For those of you who did not follow the LATAM region, they ended up beating some other team, the second place team from the LATAM region, only 3-2 in the grand finals to qualify for Iceland. So, they're obviously not this huge dominant team anymore. They lost Sasi as well, who I think was extremely pivotal, probably the second or maybe even the best team or most important piece on that team for Crew to make that run. And honestly, it just feels like Kisnet, their main duelist, feels like they're the only piece of this team that is actually carrying them, that could potentially carry them deep. I think all the other players are much weaker, and yeah, I don't think there's much else to say this team. I think Delzic's a good player, but I think even with the Kisnet hard carry, I think it's very easy to shut the rest of this team down. And it's going to be like a very easy, wherever Kisnet is, just go to the other side, and I'm sure you'll win the round. Because they're a very exploitable team. They're just not the same team at all, which is a shame. So we're just going to chuck them in B tier, because they do have strong players in Kisnet and Delzic, but don't see them doing much. Definitely not the same team that they were in 2021. So next team is G2, which is an interesting team. So they have Nuke, who in my opinion is the best player in the world right now. He plays the Sova, he plays the Raze. I don't think he plays Jet. No, he doesn't play Jet on any maps. And he just kind of flexes between those two. He's IGLing for the team. And, there were many times during 2022 where it looks like G2 was just lost. And it's like, okay, G2 aren't qualifying for Iceland. Destroy the team. And all of a sudden they make this change where they make Nuke the IGL. And all of a sudden they're this insane team. And it's like, what just happened? And it's because the way that Nuke calls. He calls around himself to set him up. Which makes sense. You have one of the best players in the world. I mean, it's basically like Nuke says, Nuke go kill. And Nuke goes kills. And yeah, I think overall as this roster, they have a couple good players. Hoodie, he's a decent flex player, and Mixwell, I think he's also a decent AWP. I think he's a little bit overrated. You didn't hear that from me, though. And yeah, so yeah, they made a really good run at the qualifiers, and I think, I don't know really what to think of G2, because at this event I can see them landing in a huge range, all the way from literally winning the tournament because they have Nuke and actually have a fairly decent supporting cast in Mixwell, Hoodie, and Avova. I think these three players actually are a really strong supporting cast. And also I can see them potentially just bombing out in early in the playoffs. Maybe not super early in the playoffs, but fairly early, and making a disappointing exit. Realistically, where I see them landing is probably at least third place. I don't I feel like anything less than third place is a disappointing exit for them, and even third place is probably disappointing. I do expect this team should make it to the finals. They have Nukia. He's playing insanely right now, and I think it's really up to the rest of the team. Sorry for this. And if players like Hoodie, and I think especially Mixwell, because Mixwell gets a lot of attention from the team, whether he's playing Jet or Chamber, I think specifically Jet, he's getting a lot of resources, and I think at times, if he's not able to do the right thing for the team, whether that be just go in an entry, or do something to set up Nukia, or do something to frag out himself, if he's not able to put up the numbers, I think Hoodie, Mixwell, or Avova, I think then G2 could just kind of fizzle out and just exit the tournament, which would be a sad exit, especially considering how well Nukia is playing as an individual. One of the highest peaks we've seen. It kind of feels it doesn't even feel like a TenZ level performance. It feels much different because he's not playing like TenZ's super hard carry. He's playing this kind of new era. I like to call it kind of tactical duelist, where it's not just duelists go in and kill. It's kind of he's putting himself in positions to just absolutely slam their opponents. So I'm going to put them in the A+ tier because I do think they can still win the tournament, and especially with the complete roster, I think that. But I just don't know what to think in terms of how deep they can go, because I think there is a chance that this goes badly for G2. I don't know what it is about them, but I think you meet G2 on a good day, and it's one of the scariest opponents you can ever meet. That's all I'm going to say. But it's also, if you meet G2 on their bad day, it's they're just struggling, they're grasping at straws, they're flailing their arms, they don't know what to do. So the duality of G2, I think that's very it's very fitting as an organization. I feel like it's G2's feel as an organization, not just in Valorant but across all esports. Next team is PaperX. So PaperX actually get a bye into playoffs because they're the first seed from APAC, so they don't have to play through the group stage, which is really beneficial for them because they get to just sit back and watch and study their opponents without revealing any of their strategies. And do I think that's going to be extremely beneficial to them? Maybe not. So PaperX, it basically lives and dies of one player, and that is Forsaken. They basically just say, oh, Forsaken, here are resources, go carry. And Forsaken goes, okay, I go carry. In the grand finals of the APAC qualifier to make it to Iceland, I believe Forsaken dropped 99 kills across 5 maps. It was a 3-2 win, so they were losing some maps. He basically dropped 100 kills over 5 maps, which is crazy. And he's just kind of playing everything. He's playing a lot of Yoru. He's playing Yoru on Bind as well, I think. He's playing Yoru, he's playing Neon, he's playing Raze, Jet. He's playing everything, and it's actually really good as well, because him playing duelists, he's such a threat that the opponents have to focus on just Forsaken, and they can actually leave room for the rest of the team to actually do stuff through those openings that he creates. But sadly, the rest of the team is not amazing. I haven't spent too long studying PaperX, but all you need to know is that Forsaken will slam and will absolutely dominate, and sometimes it just won't be enough. That's just the reality of it. So I'm going to put them in B tier. They're probably a little bit better than Xerxia, just because of how godlike Forsaken is, and especially that buy might help them a little, but I'm not, I wouldn't put any of my eggs on the PaperX basket. Next is Loud. My goodness, is Loud a team? I don't know what to think of Loud. It is crazy. So Loud is the first seed from Brazil, absolutely dominated Brazil. They didn't lose a single game in the playoffs. I think they lost one game, one map in the group stage. They won 2-1, and the players or the coach was like, this is not acceptable, we should have been better. And then ever since then, they've just been perfect. And it's clear to see why this team is so hyped. Brazil last in 2021 was horrible. They had such high expectations, such talented players such as Heat from Vivo Kid. He was extremely hyped, probably one of the best players in the world, just straight up. And Brazil never made it out of groups and never put up any significant performances or results. This year it's looking different because finally, instead of just having like, for example, the best player in one role or two roles, they have the best players in the region, probably across all 5 roles. They have Aspas on the jet. He absolutely slams. He's basically just putting up. He gets these resources and he carries. That's all I'm going to say about him. Sadak, he on the flex, he's also IGLing. He puts up pretty good impact for an IGL and makes actually really good calls. The thing about Loud is that they're the only team in the region that has actually decent strats, because basically everyone else in Brazil is just like, oh, we're going to just win off fragging alone. And Loud is very careful about what they do and how they approach the game. So I think that's very important. And also, I think the most important person on this team, it might be controversial to say, but I think it's Pancada. Pancada plays such an important role in being able to set up the team to do so much for them. It's really cool to see him. Honestly, I love this player to death. It's so great. I also have Sasi from Crew and finally Les. 5 really strong players. I think the only problem is that I think the fact that they're playing in Brazil, it means that it's hard for them to get high level practice. Maybe you can call this the Division Strikers effect, or the fact that they went 99 and 101 and 0, and then they didn't even qualify, because it's when you're practicing against competition and you're just winning, it's hard to find what's going wrong for you. And the same thing could happen for Loud, but I doubt it. I don't think that's really going to happen with this Loud team. It feels like a lot of the players are very stern and very strict on themselves and know what the expectations are for this team. I think the only problem that they could run into is because they have 5 really strong players, so they have the gunpowder, the firepower to just dominate on maps. But I think if teams figure them out mid-map and Loud can't come back from like a 5-game losing streak, I think that's what I'm concerned about, because Loud haven't been in losing positions. They've always been winning. That's all they've been doing in Brazil, is just dominating. So when they find themselves in losing positions, what is it going to look like? Do they have the mental fortitude to kind of keep up, to keep going? So Loud, I think this team is really strong. I think they could either just straight up win the tournament, similar to G2, they can just straight up win the tournament, or they could flop. But I don't think they'll flop, because they just have extremely talented players. And it's exciting. It's really exciting. This team, Brazil has never produced a powerhouse of a team, and I think finally we might see some good results from them. So I'm actually going to put them in the A+ tier, because I don't think because they haven't proven anything yet. They've been playing in a weak region, so they've been putting up good results, but I think they just need to prove it. They've got the talent. It's very obvious that they have what it takes to make it to the top, but can they? Can they actually get there? And how will they fare against actually good competition and actual good tactics? I think that's the important thing. Next team is Team Liquid. I'm going to be honest, Team Liquid's a mess right now. They shouldn't even be at this tournament. They got here because FPX sadly couldn't make it because of all of the things that are happening right now with the war, which is a bit of a shame, because maybe we'll talk about it later actually. So yeah, Team Liquid, they shouldn't even be here, and they have such strong players, Scream, Nevera Soulcast. These guys are such insane fraggers, even Yampi and Link. Like, we could be thinking, I think in theory, we should be thinking about this team like a, maybe like maybe like a loud, where all five players are just strong in their individual position. But we're not, because this team is so lost in the sauce they just think they're better than the meta or something, where they're trying to reinvent themselves or something, when they can just play normally. Just have you Navera playing Chamber, just have Scream playing Duelist, just have your players playing Thing, but they have to play this weird double controller every map. It's so bizarre, and I think people know that this Liquid squad should be good, but they're just not, because they're so caught up with themselves about how to play the game, which is honestly a shame. And I think how their first game goes will determine a lot about how the rest of the tournament goes. If they come out of the gate and they just are playing wacky comps, even if they win, it's not going to get them anywhere, because it's not an optimal way to play. And versus especially the best teams, you're just going to get figured out in an instant. And now you're just playing this suboptimal comp versus a team comp that will just absolutely dominate you. So I'm going to put them in B. They have the talent, and I'm really hoping that the fact that they initially got eliminated from the tournament, and they've been given a second chance. So I'm hoping this is their wake up call. Okay, this is our chance to make it and start playing normally and start trying, because they're trying, but it's just weird. It's like, stop playing Neon and Omen and Brimstone on Haven. Like, what are you doing? Please stop. It's hurting my eyes. Our last team is the Guard. Yeah, I kind of spoiled it, but I think they're S tier. I think probably Guard is the best team right now, and that is for many reasons. The two main reasons are Trent. Trent is playing the initiator role. He plays mostly Sova. He plays a little bit of Breach and Sky as well. But even though he's playing this role that he's not being set up, he's using utility to set up his players most of the time, his teammates, like Sire, and he just takes duels. Like, there's so many times, I remember on the Haven map, Game 5 versus Optic for Iceland qualifier, and he's just taking these duels, and it's not like he's got like a flash or anything to flash him through a smoke or around the corner, or he's even using like util to help him. No, he's just like straight up swinging and taking peaks, and because he's such an insane mechanical monster, he's winning them. It's unbelievable. It should not be happening. And the scary thing is, it's probably going to happen at Iceland, even versus the best teams. I'm scared it's still going to happen. And yeah, Trent is just like probably the best, the first instance in Valorant of us having a prodigy. Like, this guy, this is his first tournament. His first major tournament was the Iceland qualifiers, and he won it all. And he's here. He's been playing this professional for like 4 months, 5 months, and we're only 4 months into the year. It is absolutely ridiculous. And also Sire was like super underrated. Everyone just thought he was another Jet. He was playing well, and then Guard started actually winning and started progressing through the tournament, and we're like, hang on, Sire actually puts up decent numbers. Sire actually gets like so many 3Ks and stuff. Sire's actually like a legit top player, and it's like, now you're realizing. I think like as an Overwatch player, it's like, I had my eyes on Sire for a long time, but it's like, you guys didn't see this? You guys didn't see what he was doing this whole time? I know, it's crazy. It's ridiculous, And this is like the new era of Korean Jet. It's like, he's just like so flashy, he's so tactical, so balanced. Everything about him is like perfect. It's so good watching Sire. It's actually like an art. Ye is like, it's like, how is he doing this, in the sense of like getting into these weird positions and getting entries, like he's like entering on chamber and killing the enemies. It's like, how is he doing that? With Saya, it's like he just beats the enemy. That's how the guard feels with Saya and Trent. It's like, how are they beating the enemy? They're in suboptimal positions, and it's like, the enemy, just kill the guard, just kill Sai, just kill Trent, and they're like, no, we're just gonna get a 3k and win the round. It's like, okay. And to top it off, they also have a really good supporting cast. Valen, he's a new IGL, he hasn't been IGLing for long, and he's actually legitimately good. He's someone who, he's not a hard or cold player, he's just someone who's always there, he's chilling, and then when he sees his opportunity, he just can get a 3k or a multi-kill on it just randomly. It's like, oh, okay, nice. I don't know how he did that, but he did it. And he's honestly like a perfect fit for this team. And so is Jonah, because Jonah, he's playing the flex role, but he's not, he puts up good numbers, and he's not the super pop-off flex that like who people play, like people who play KO. If it's like most of these players are like, they have to be like pop-up players and be the person who's like second or like has the same number of kills as a duelist. Not Jonah. He's like someone who's very all-rounder. He's extremely flexible. I feel like this guy's played like so many, basically every agent under the sun. It's really good. It's and Net's just solid. Nothing bad to say about Net. But the reason why the guard is so good right now is because all of these pieces fit perfectly. And props to MCE, their coach, for bringing all these pieces together, because that's what the guard is. It's just like 5 perfectly crafted players that mesh so well together. And it's crazy. I mean, I've never witnessed a team like that. Probably across any esports of they just formed. They came out of nothing. No one thought anything of them. And now they're here at their first ever tournament they created. Literally 5 misfits. 5 players that were rejected, and no one thought they were going to do anything. And I think they're the number one team, number one prospect to win this tournament. So, props to them. I'm really excited for this tournament, because although I'm a bit bummed we have no FPX or Fnatic without a full roster or no mech, because realistically I'd probably chuck Optic and Guard in like an A tier and put Fnatic with a full roster or FPX or mech in the S tier. I think that's how I'd realistically put it. That's not the world we live in. This is probably the closest we have to like, because we have a guaranteed new winner of Masters. No Ascend, no Sentinels, no Gambit. A new team will win Masters, will win that trophy and get that title. And if FPX were playing, I would have just been like, chuck FPX in S tier, and chuck FPX in S tier, and chuck everyone else, like chuck Garden Opting into like A+, and move everyone down. Because FPX was so good, and so were Mech, and so were Fnatic's old roster, but this is not the world. We're living in a world with war and COVID. So this tournament is going to be extremely close, and honestly, putting a bet on anyone to win the roster, putting a bet to win for any of these top teams to win the tournament is a safe bet. The Guard, Optic, G2, Loud, Fnatic, even Fnatic or DRX, I think these are all legitimate teams who could take the crown. And, I'm actually really excited for this event. I think we can really see some magic happen, even without the highest level of competition. So yeah, that's all. That's my final tier list. Let me know if you want, what your thoughts on my tier list are. Also, I'm going to be trying to put a lot of content during Iceland. I go on holiday in like 5 days. Yeah, my last assignment I had in 4 days, and that's probably when playoffs start. So I just really want to make as much content and watch as much Valorant as I can, because honestly, I'm loving Valorant right now. These international tournaments make me so hyped, because we only get like 3 or 4 a year, which is a shame, but like that makes them especially special. So yeah, please subscribe and like and comment. and turn notifications on, that'd be really appreciated. I'm trying to put out more content, but I'm just not being really motivated recently. Probably tomorrow, because it's 10 p.m. right now. My mom's gonna tell me to go to bed, but I want to try and wake up early, and I want to do a top 20 teams. I mean, not a top 20 players at Iceland, because I have the list here, and I really like my list. But I just need to record a video to do it. So I'll probably put that out tomorrow, hopefully. Let me know if you want me to do any other videos like WOD reviews, or if you have any teams like, why do you think Liquid's so bad right now? Maybe I'll do a WOD review for the first game they play if they lose, or if any upsets happen. I'm always willing to do that. So just give me new content ideas, and I'll definitely consider them and most likely end up doing it. So yeah, this is my final tier list. Mine is FPX. We'll just move over there. It's the ghost of FPX. Look at that. RIP FPX. You would have probably won Masters, but it's a shame. I love this FPX roster, but it's a shame it had to end this way. Oh well. Yeah. I just said like, subscribe, whatever. Go to my Twitter, my Twitch, anything. Thank you. Bye.